Hi there, I'm Tony Glynn and welcome along to the PGG Wrightson Stud Tour. Now this week we're catching up with Rob and Jean Johnston. They've got Glencairn Limousin stud here we're at Outram, just out of Dunedin. Let's go and see how they're getting on. Apparently they're doing a fairly good job. So where did the stud all begin, Rob?
Roger Douglas made farming less interesting in the early 80s with the reforms that were going on, and it wasn't terribly profitable, and prior to that we'd done a lot of development, which I really enjoyed. I'd always sort of liked cattle, and we thought we'd go and get a small stud going. You know, to me, beef is meat, and the Limousin could be an ideal terminal sire to cross to across. You know, we had Herefords at the time to improve the carcass quality of the Herefords.
So you've got some nice cattle here now, Rob. What numbers are you running now?
We've got about 70 odd registered Limousins and a few others that are not.
So obviously a fairly small gene pool here in New Zealand, Rob, and you're getting right amongst the AI.
Yeah, I see that as the way we've got to bring in more genetics from overseas, and since the late 90s in particular, when American genetics have come in and some of the better French bulls, you've seen a great improvement in Limousin cattle, and noticeably the temperament there is just made leaps and bounds. To make the progress, you've got to cull them out at one end, and you've got to use good genetics at the other end. And with proven bulls, that's making big progress.
It's getting fairly well known, Gary, that the temperament of the breed has got a lot better over the years. Pretty good now.
Well, certainly, yeah. I think that the old reputation of them being a little bit poor temperament, I mean, that's old hat. So there's about 17 years of docility scoring. It's one of the first breeds, I think the first breed to get into docility scoring. So the reliability is right up there. Yeah.
And with your, how does your docility score work?
It's a very simple 1 to 5 score. So usually a crush test, how they behave. I mean, this bull is just standing nice and quietly there. But more importantly, how it walks out, really. Yeah. If it, barges out, it's probably a 3 at least. Yeah. If it just walks out quietly, it's a 1 or 2. Yeah. Most of these are, ones and 1.5. So.
No 5s anymore these days.
Oh, I should know. No. And 4s, no. I mean, they're long gone.
It's a highly heritable trait, and it's just going up every year. It's and it's largely through these AI and the very good bulls that are coming in with good temperament.
So big job screening through to get the right semen.
Yeah, we don't have massive choice, but fortunately we rely on the importers to bring in good genetics, and the ones we're using at the moment from America, Australia, and some from France.
Yeah, and what sort of a percentage are you AI in the herd?
This year we AI'd, I think, about 30 cows. There are about 20 replacement heifers and about 10, of the better cows. We record the birth weight, and that goes into a database to give ideas of how bulls breed and get the figures. We're part of Australia, so you've got a database of going on 5,000 cows. At the same time, I assess the cow. Some of the cows are more happy to have you weigh their calf than others. So I'm not saying that's the be-all, end-all of temperament, but to me it's an indicator. And if a cow stands over you and watches you weigh a calf, well, she gets 3 ticks and a good scale.
Lyndon, you've been here at Little Valley Station for quite a few years. The family's been around for a while.
Yeah, we bought Little Valley in 1992, but my family's been in the Little Valley area since 1923.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
Still got a few brothers around you too?
Yeah, I've got one brother on the home property, which is Matangi, and my other brother on Doctor's Point, which is next to Matangi and the Clutha River.
Now with the cattle side of things, when did you get interested in and start farming the limos?
When we bought the place in 92, they had Limousin cattle here, and I'd come from a traditional Hereford property, and I'd every intention of switching from the Limousins to the Herefords. And after the first calf sale at Omakau, seeing the Limousins go $150 a head more than the Herefords. I thought, well, that would be a stupid bloody thing to do.
Yeah.
So I've stuck with them ever since.
Was that when you were driving home from the sale with a big smile
No, when
on
I
your
was
face?
sitting there, right there, watching it happen, actually.
Yeah.
And I've stayed there ever since, and it's always happened. They've always been ahead. So.
Yeah. Noticed a few black ones out there.
Yeah, got about 3 black bulls early in the 90s, and that's just kept coming through the mob.
Yeah.
But they're all pure Limousin. We had a visit from the Limousin stud breeders from New Zealand, came out in the middle of last winter, and it was covered in snow, and we're in a hoarfrost. And there was a bit of hay that would drop down, which is just grass hay, just crappy grass hay too. And they made a comment about how well they were doing in this environment, and one of them brought up the fact that that's where they grow in France.
Oh, yeah.
That they were in the higher, colder parts of France growing beef on a poorer quality pastures. So that's what they were bred for. But in winter we do run up brown bales and feed them through the winter, not because they need the feed, it just purely keeps them quiet. They get used to us being around them.
Yeah. They're pretty mad by the look of them.
Yeah, yeah.
They lick you to death.
Yeah, no, I've heard the rumour that they're a snotty cattle, but I've never seen it.
Yeah. Bull selection process when you get down to Rob's there for a look, Lyndon?
I jump in the ute, we go down to a paddock, and we just walk out into the paddock and walk around amongst them, and I pick one that I like the look of.
Yeah.
In the early days, Rob used to bring out this big wad of paper that had the breeding and the scrotal measurements and all that sort of stuff that I know diddly shit about. And so in the later days, I noticed Rob doesn't bring that piece of paper out anymore. He realises that I'm just going to pick it by eye anyway.
Yeah. Fairly light on the animal health side of things too?
Yeah, haven't dipped or drenched these for probably be 10 to 15 years, I suppose.
Yeah.
When we first took over, I did a wee program there, and then after a while I realised they actually didn't need it, so I stopped doing it.
And they get up and running pretty quick, calves?
Yeah, the calves are actually quite cool to watch. You see them being born, and they're these tiny little things with long legs, and within a week or two they're away. Yeah. Then they just power the weight on.
So some nice big calves too, and no trouble calving ease there?
No, the breeder's renowned for moderate calving. They don't have big calves. When they're born, they're not muscular. And after about 3 weeks, you can see the muscularity developing on the calves. And as you can see with the calves, they're really starting to show a lot of muscle.
Yeah.
And the other thing with particularly the pole genetics is that you're getting a shorter gestation length, and we're selecting for that so that it's moving the calving forward a few days. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long have you been working on that to get it to pull it back? Is it a long process?
I suppose it is. It's only making small increments, but we're aware of it, and it's part. I think the two come hand in hand. I see smaller birth weights and gestation length go hand in hand. We're best known for the extra muscling, the extra yield you're going to get in the carcass, and to some degree some genetic trimming of fat, so that if you're a very good feeder, you're not going to get caught with overfat or teas in your killing sheet. In my observation, that a lot of the polled cattle haven't got as much filling in the rump, and the polled Limousins, but they scan very well with the eye muscle area. And we as breeders, I'm trying to get more rump into these polled cattle. It takes 3 times as much food to put on a kilogram of fat as it does to put on a kilogram of beef, as I understand.
Yeah.
So if you're not putting on fat, you're putting on more muscle. It's more efficient. I think that when you analyse it down, that's my perception of what's going on.
Yeah.
They're very, regarded as being very efficient, and that is one reason why, say in America, the feedlot system really suits them, because they're efficient converters of feed to meat.
Now you're sort of halfway between Kura and Duntroon.
Yep, yeah, and we run pretty much back towards the Danzies. 3,000 hectares, pretty much all tussock, 110 hectares of irrigated land, which has just come under irrigation this year, and pretty much trying to become a self-contained unit. We run 3,500 half-bred ewes and take most of the half-bred lambs through and kill them in the spring. And we run a bit over 200 breeding cows, which are a Limousin Angus cross. And now with the irrigation, the idea is to take everything through and fatten them ourselves. So we end up wintering about between 600 and 700 head of cattle.
You've been in the Limousins for quite a while.
Yeah, well, pretty much since we've been here, Tony. When we came here, we bought the place lock, stock and barrel, and we thought we'd probably ditch the limos because we're Hereford, traditional Hereford people. But once we started killing them, and we're pretty blown away by the way they yielded and graded and that. So I sort of looked around a bit and read an article in Australian Land where they're crossing with the Angus quite a bit and getting good results. So we tried that and we're stuck with it ever since.
But you're still getting that hybrid figure, throwing it around a bit, aren't you?
Yeah, well, it's not rocket science. I suppose what we do is anything that throws red, we put an Angus bull to, and anything that throws more to the Angus, we put a limo bull over, and yeah, it seems to work for us. So we end up with about 50-50. 100 cows pretty much go each way.
Yeah.
And yeah, we try and pick our heifers for replacements pretty much on with that limo muscling shape. And we find, I really like them. They're good hill cattle. They seem to climb well. I worked on a lot of different places, and I've seen a lot of cattle places, and I don't think I've ever worked with cattle or breeding cows that utilise the country as well as what the Limousins do. They certainly don't hang around the gate. They get away and they poke into the wee corners here and there.
Why do you think they're not more widely used?
I don't know. I think some of the early bulls that were brought in perhaps weren't vetted well enough for temperament, and they got a bit of a bad name. I'm actually quite surprised there's not a lot more of them run, considering the attributes that I've seen in them as far as utilising country like this.
So, feed efficiency attracted me to Limousins, big time, and just where the meat is, even on this one, that's where all your high value cuts are, and there's plenty of it. The cross is recognised, they're called Limflex overseas, and I don't know why more New Zealand breeders don't do it.
Because they throw black.
Oh, they throw black and polled.
Yeah.
So, you're just going to put more muscle in the back end and just lighten up the frame a wee bit. See, limos have got quite a light skeletal frame and a lot of muscle. The yield is very, very good, 65% plus, whereas some of your, say, British breeds will be well under that and more. It's very frustrating as a Limousin breeder when we don't get paid on meat. We just get paid on what's on the hook. And the time will change at some stage, but it needs to have changed by now, really. We shouldn't be being paid for bone, shouldn't be being paid for fat. We should be being paid for meat. Yeah.
So Alliance still running a beef carcass competition down there in Matara?
Yeah, I'm pleased to say Alliance in their wisdom have carried it on when a lot of other regions have done away with the beef carcass competition from the days when we had a national one. They all fed to a national one. And it's so easy to join, you just pick out a couple of animals and send them in. And, I'd encourage lots of other farmers, commercial farmers, just to do the same.
Amazing that the Limousins aren't getting more widely used when people see the results from these carcass competitions that they still do have.
Yeah, that's true. I think we'll see the major move in popularity in Limousin when we get a grading system that recognises yield grading.
Which you've only been waiting 20 years for.
Yeah, well, I've been waiting a while, and both major meat companies down here have doing tests in it and should have, I hope, have something rolled out shortly.
Meat to bone ratio on these guys fairly good?
Exceptional, really, compared to other cattle. When we kill these, the cull animals we kill would typically yield about 66% carcass yield, a good one. and the poorer one's not quite as good as that, which is pretty exceptional. And then, of course, you get the higher cuttability where you get more meat off the carcass as well. So it's not just a one-off thing with carcass yield, it's the yield of actual saleable meat off the carcass is exceptional as well. But, you know, the evidence is, when you look at what happens in England where they do have a yield grading system which recognises yield, I think over 30% of all cattle going to the works for beef have got Limousin genetics, which, to put it in perspective, is more than the Angus breed, the Charolais breed and the Simmental put together.
And a lot in England and America?
America, it's pretty popular too because they fit into the feedlot system. Limousin cattle have a gene and it actually increases the number of fibres in the muscle. Rather than them being bigger, it just increases the number, and that's why the Limousin cattle beasts have more muscle mass. People that are lucky enough to eat merino or merino cross lamb would realise the fineness of the grain and the quality of the meat there is sought after, and we say the same for Limousin. It is regarded as being more tender than normal beef.
You've had a lot of history with your family there with the Limousin.
Our foundation herd came from France in 1973, so...
Ben Moore stud?
Ben Moore stud, yes.
Yeah. Where are you based there?
Well, we were based at Ben Moore at Porter's Pass, but now we're up to the Salwin Gorge at a place called Flagpole, so that's where we are now.
So Warwick, you've got a few of Rob Johnson's bulls in the trial here. Fairly good thing to be involved in this trial.
Yes, we have. We've got 3 of Rob's bulls in the trial, and yeah, we're grateful to have them here.
Most guys have 2 or 3?
2 to 3, just one occasionally, but yeah, 2 to 3 is a good number.
Yeah. You got a few in there yourself?
We've got two in ourselves, yes, we have.
So how long has it been going for, the trial?
Well, the trial, we started off with there was a national trial which was based in the North Island, and so that's been going for 19 years and continues to carry on. But we decided 5 years ago to run our own trial in the South Island, and just to get the local breeders an opportunity to come a bit closer, and that's been quite successful, very successful.
So that ends in a sale, and when's the sale soon?
The sale's on the 20th of May,
yep.
And so just before that they'll all be tested again and inspected thoroughly, and then they'll be ready for sale.
Yep.
So that's the.
So you have about how many in there?
Well, we'll end up with probably a dozen or 13 bulls, I'm guessing, somewhere that number.
Yeah.
But
so how long they camped here?
They come in about August, and they have a settle-in period, and then we start the trial at the beginning of September. So,
yep.
And that runs through so they're all on the same basis, and the same feed and same animal health treatments and everything. So,
yeah,
so that's
a bit like boarding school. They get on all right when they get here.
Yeah, that stage are not. They're pretty. It's the end of the winter, and they're still only boys. Yes, they've settled down very quickly.
Yep.
So, I guess I think the main reason they've all come from a different area, and they're all all come to the one farm. Not as if one bull's it's come back to his home territory, so they're all new. It's like you say, they're coming to boarding school.
Yeah, yeah, and you got a good man here looking after them.
We have Brian O'Connell. He owns the property and manages the animals on a day-to-day basis, and Gary and I help every month when we weigh them, need animal health.
Yeah. Fairly quickly in the process, you'd get a favourite or two.
Well, on the bulls,
yeah. Yes,
they do. They show up pretty quickly, and they for a while they sort of juggle between each other. And then all of a sudden there'll be 1 or 2 that'll come out looking better. But that's in cattle judging's in the eye of the beholder, and some people looking for different traits and different types of animals. So what might be good for one person's is not necessarily what another breeder would like. So
3 nice young bulls in the trial up there at Dunsandel.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing for the Limousin breed. We've got a bull trial in the North and the South Island, and each year I send up 2 or 3 bulls, which are some of our better bulls, but usually I try to pick ones with interesting breeding that might suit a stud breeder that wants to follow up on them.
Yeah, how long have you been involved in the trial?
Oh, since it started I've sent one every year, or a couple every year. I think where it is now has only been going for maybe 5 years.
Yeah.
But we've sent them to the North Island they had a national trial in the Waikato for a number of years. We sent them up there. It's great being able to compare all the bulls together under the same environment, being fed the same level, etc., and seeing the figures come through. And this year they're doing particularly well, and you see the different genetics. That's good.
Bit of competition between the boys who have got the bulls in the trial?
Oh yeah. They all come in at different shapes and sizes. Some start at over 400 kilograms and some might be 250 kilograms. So they're not all identical, but you've got to take that into account when you look at the bulls on sale day.
So they're over the scales every month, and what sort of weights are we doing there?
Well, we weighed them this morning. There was, these are 16, 17 month old. One was 704 kg, one's 702. They go down to about 500. Yeah, 496 I think was the lowest weight. Yeah. But that's also a younger bull. So, quite pleased with the weight growth.
And the daily gains there?
28 days, I think about 1.4, just a shade over a day, which is pretty good for January, February. We started this trial with 15. Yeah, and we put one out this morning, so we're down to 11. And we'll probably catalogue 10, which is ample really. The previous year I think we started with 19 and catalogued 16. Yeah. So, that entry quality is right up there because the breeders are only going to send 2 or 3 of their top weaned bull calves anyway. And so we're taking that top, comparing them, and only cataloguing the very best of those.
We've been quite involved with equestrian for some years now. Both the children rode ponies. They didn't start until 10 and 12, so I didn't have to do the lead rein and the show thing, but they are predominantly into eventing, and Grace, our daughter, doesn't ride anymore, but Clark, our son, it's become his passion, and he's lucky he lives in England now and is pursuing his dream of representing New Zealand as a 3-day eventer. He's just moved into Mark Todd's yard, so he's in a perfect spot to further his career, really.
Couldn't get better than that.
No, couldn't get better than that. Sir Mark Todd, did I say that?
Oh yeah.
He did a university degree, he did finance, but he's shown little inclination to use that, and he's definitely fixed on his path to spending the rest of his days in England, at this stage anyway.
Yeah.
Grace is in Dunedin. She's recently returned from having some months overseas. She has a law and science degree, and she's working for a company in Dunedin now, Abacus Bio. They're an agri consulting and research company, and it fits perfectly with her degrees, and I think she's going to enjoy being back in Dunedin. You sort of go through the stages. You go through Pony Club, and then you go through the local eventing scene, and we have a Pony Club event on our property down the road, which you saw, but then I've sort of grown along with it as Clark's gone. I've gone further up through the stages, and at the moment I'm involved with the Junior Rider Performance Program for Eventing New Zealand, which has just started, and it looks like it's going to be fun. It's not too demanding, but I get to travel with and meet some interesting people, so that's keeping me quite busy. I've also been involved with Trans-Tasman teams as chef to keep, and that's good fun.
Lucky enough to have a right and a left-hand man, and which makes life a lot easier for us, and we can pursue other things off farm without feeling too guilty about things. But
the stud side of things is very interesting, and while I'm not actively involved, because I'm not, I'm always very interested, and I love going out with Rob and seeing the new crop of calves and keeping a watchful eye when he's tagging the odd calf. Yes, I do. I do enjoy it. I'm not involved in selecting sires. I usually get hooked in to come up with some names. It's been interesting, and it's been something that has been a constant interest for Rob when farming's been perhaps less interesting or less rewarding at times. He's always had the stud, and it's been a great interest for us.
For more information on the PGG Wrightson Stud Tour, visit ruraltv.co.nz and come and join us on Facebook.